So welcome back to Tacticians and You, the miniseries about everything Tacticians. And this week, well, let's just say this week comes with a massive asterisk because my Vigil is the only Tactician I haven't fully done yet. I mean, look, I like Vigil, but I also want to develop my more important targets. So I borrowed a friend's vigil for CM runs to form most of my opinions on him and also get the background footage for this. Anyway, that's basically the qualifier to any terrible opinions that come up as I discuss why Vigil is overhated. That's right, I am gonna sit here and defend Vigil and just try to, let's justify his weird design because, I think we're all just kind of looking at it wrong. Because, look, Vigil isn't a Vanguard. He's a ranged Dreadnought with 3 block potential. I'm not saying Crusher, the Wolves have defense stats, so Dreadnought it is. I am not even going to bother doing the flapping about things I normally do. I'm just going to cut to the chase. Vigil is a DPS that happens to generate DP. He's very much in the same zone as Bagpipe, Siege, and Inez. They can develop DP, but they will also, basically kill anything you need them to kill. Virgil only gets his shit because of how his summons work and his DP gen, but that's basically every tactician. We can meme his S2 DP gen all we want, but Black Knight only generates 4 DP with her S2, and that's a longer period of time she takes because she has to build up charges. In fact, S3 and S1 DP gen is very in line with tactician levels of DP gen. The summons are squishy as hell, but his summons are still on the tankier end of the spectrum in terms of raw stats. Only Midim and Mumu can arguably rival the Wolves, but Midim sacrifices DPS for tank stats, which will make sense for his niche. And Mumu is very dependent on her clone targets, which is just a whole another can of worms, which we will get into next week. There's a lot of things going for Vigil, and while he does deserve some of the hate he gets. Actually, scratch that. He deserves most of the hate he gets, and is definitely better options than him. Let's remember my coat argument from the beginning of the series. That's right, picking a tactician isn't about picking the best vanguard for the job. It's about being tactical and therefore having fun with the game. And let's be honest, with the majority opinion of him being so low, you could easily make yourself feel better by clearing some hard challenges with this guy. I mean, hopefully after this whole video, you won't have a low opinion of him, but I'm not that much of a optimist. I guess we should talk about the summons first because it's quite unique. Vigil summons the Wolf Pack scales with time, if that makes sense. Basically, every 25 seconds, if he is at E2, he gains a Wolf Shadow to a max stack of 3. With each Wolf Shadow, the pack gets an extra block count and an extra instance of damage. So while his wolves are individually squishy, as a pack, they're actually quite good. At max level, the wolf pack does have 371 attack, so with 3 stacks, the pack effectively has over 1k attack. Although they do have the brawler problem where they're doing that damage over multiple hits instead of one single hit, meaning they're doing less damage anyway because defense calculations works in flats, not percentages. Thankfully, Vigil's E2 talent does negate this a little by letting both him and his wolf pack ignore 200 defense by units they are blocking. This is me presuming max pots, by the way, because it's, welfare, but still kind of a problem. This is also a problem that carries over to HP. Well, at max level and max stacks, the Wolfpack has a total of 3,300 health. Well, that's pretty good until you remember that individually, they have 1,100 health with pitiful defense stats, and they can only be healed by losing head when it dies. Pair this with the fact that he suffers from the penalty of being a 6-star tactician, with a 25-second respawn time on his summons, but all the 5-star and below tacticians have 15 seconds. This is pretty bad. And then you remember that he's down if he's down to no wolves, he could be waiting up to 75 seconds to go from 0 to 3 if a head isn't killed during it. And then you realize why people would seriously consider using his S1. I mean, look, S1 on paper looks terrible. At skill level 7, it's only 1 second faster than the regen passive, 4 seconds faster with M3. Presuming M3, waiting 21 seconds for a head to respawn and 8 DP looks terrible, but then you play Vigil and then you realize he really needs it. If the goal is just to have someone to block lane while generating DP, but I would argue that at that point, just build Flame Tail or Bulba's Folio, because she's out now, if you need a cheap DPS blocker. We aren't building Vigil anyway for S1 in mind, so let's talk about the infamous S2, Electric Wind God Bite. We already defended his DP gen. That doesn't matter because S2 is the skill that makes him purely a AFK DPS. It lets the Wolfpack crit for 170%, heals them for 15% of their max HP, and gives them the Charger passive. With M3, we're looking at a 200% crit and a 20% heal, so I'm gonna put this out here, but this is a pretty damn good skill on paper with an interesting holdback. You see, what's interesting about S2 is that the fact it's technically a charge storing skill, which is interesting. In practice, this means Vigil S2 can hold 2 charges for his crit, meaning he can cash in 2 DP and store the crit, and heal, then start charging the skill again. If the pack is already holding a crit, the skill won't activate, so once he gets rid of the current charge, the skill will activate again to add the next charge. This basically means he can crit back to back and stack the heal, which has its niche use cases. You can also tell when the Wolfpack is holding a charge, because on the base skin, the Wolfpack is going to have this electric effect like Kazuya from Tekken, and now you understand the joke I was making. Anyway, I think this is a really neat aspect of the skill, which isn't mentioned on the wiki, so I'll just want to bring it up here. Well, it's neat on paper. In practice, it's terrible. His S2 encourages him to have a more proactive role, unlike his S1, where he should just be, playing like a charger. Because, look, S2 is encouraging a very aggressive charger playstyle. It even has a mini charger trait as part of the crit effect, but the Wolfpack is a little too squishy for all that. Also, realistically, you wouldn't be stacking the skill that often, and to be honest, if you really want that, Fang Ultra S1 is an option, and that can store 3 charges at M3. Not only that, it also has the better charge time at skill level 7, and her kit better rewards the charger playstyle, unlike Vigil's. At M3 max level, Vigil's Wolfpack has the better damage, and I do choose to use Vigil S2 over Fang anyway, but I would still generally recommend Fang to most people over him, since I feel like, if you're deploying Vigil, you should be using S3, despite some of its awkward parts. S3 is in an awkward spot. It does have obscenely high damage potential, and I do mean obscenely high. We're talking about an additional 30% arts damage for every hit Vigil or his pack does, and Vigil gets to attack in 3-round bursts during this skill, so we're talking about like an extra 90% per burst. Don't forget that his physical damage already does have an extra 200 damage. This is great, and I love it, but there's flaws. First things first, no healing, which means if you want to optimize this skill's damage, you will need to tear your hair out defending the fuck out of your pack. Second of all, the talent and the skill requires your fragile ass wolves to be blocking to get the bonuses, and this skill is really designed to, kill elites in mind, so your wolves' damage will be losing value, fast. This is definitely why I see people disliking Vigil, because S3 is normally the premier skill of 6 stars, so this really leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And yeah, I honestly agree. Yeah, no. When I was using him in challenge runs, my friend's Vigil was set to S3, and it made things difficult because my wolves barely have any defense, and it didn't help that he was moduleless. His premier skill just has, too many caveats that require him to work as a DPS. His SV has boss killing potentials, and when the stars align, it's quite potent, but a lot of units that suit boss killing can do that with less steps and less setup. Yes, it is a fun challenge to set up the scenario where Vigil can do that, but let's be honest, a lot of players would rather just take the easy route if presented with one, which is why I would, still recommend more normal boss killing picks here. we should talk about his modules, which are Module X and Module Y. To remember the difference between these two modules, Module X base trait gives summons 15% damage reduction, while Module Y base trait buffs the Tactician's damage by 15% when attacking units blocked by their summon. If we were looking at just these base traits, I would recommend Module X because the wolves are squishy, so damage reduction is a big W for them. Here's the thing though, you should hold out for his Module Y. While his Mod X gives him damage reduction and a huge quality of life buff by giving a fully stacked wolf pack on deployment, as well as the ever valuable dodge meme upon losing a wolf, Mod Y lets him ignore war defense and his wolves to steal defensive stats for themselves, therefore doing more damage. Once you remember that the wolf pack can deal follow-up attacks equal to the number of extra heads, this talent upgrade gets, kind of obscene. Like, for example, if we have a fully stacked wolf pack with mod Y3, the wolf pack is dealing an extra 775 extra damage and is therefore increasing their own defense but by 60 in a single attack. And this isn't even including max pot. The defense still is capped at 100 and mod 3, so sadly, not that much of an upgrade, but Vigil is ultimately a DPS, and mod Y caters very well to that, so hold out for it when it eventually comes out. That said, I would still recommend getting mod X to at least mod 2 if you do see yourself using him frequently. It's very much like 9's second module. It's not as good as her main module, but there is situations where you would want what it adds. There is going to be situations where you want an immediate free block summon, so it's worth it if you want the main your Vigil. I basically said my piece now, so let's sum up. Vigil's wolf pack is fragile. The pack also has the bowl issue, even with the talent. Vigil's Premier skill is terrible. His wolves take too long to respawn, each single wolf, and S2 is awkward despite having interesting aspects. It sounds like he's dog shit, and frankly, I somewhat agree. I can see why people would dislike him, but I think if you specifically want a DPS tactician, Vigil is more than fine. When I stack him alongside the other DPS-focused tacticians, I think he comes out on top purely because of the level of investment you need to put into him. Like, Black Knight is slightly cheaper to raise because, she's a 5-star, but Somberfoot can't really compete with the Wolf Pack. Optional Moo on the other hand, can beat the Wolf Pack at its best state when it comes to stats, but Optional Moo clones really needs you to max out one other 6-star to make that work. Vigil, on the other hand, just needs at least level 2 module Y and a level 60 to start his work. Level 90 is optional, but that's a big ask for what ultimately is a mediocre unit. It also helps that he's easier to obtain by the player base due to his welfare status, unlike Black Knight, who is a gacha only unit, and then you got Moo, who is gacha only and limited. So, yeah. Vigil is still worth the effort if you want a 6-star tactician compared to his contemporaries. And yes, if we look outside of the tactician class, there are definitely many better options, and I would only recommend Vigil as a second Vanguard pick like Black Knight, where the extra DP is just a side dish to what they actually offer. But with that said, Vigil is overhated and deserves a re-evaluation by the community. He does deserve the hate for his awkwardness, but he is more than usable than the hate would imply otherwise. Anyway, I'm gonna put on my clown makeup because I know this comment section is just gonna come at me, especially because I didn't talk about the math stats, and that's because I did not want to try to figure out what the fucking maths calculations would be for Vigil S3. But yeah, no, anyway, hopefully I will still see you guys for next week for the final tactician of the series, which is Moo. So bye now.